these prayers that she's uttering here to Krishna, I think it's 26 verses or so, they form a very important part of the first book and of the theology of the Bhagavatam as well. Prabhupada famously, of course, made them into a separate small publication, the prayers of Queen Kunti. Let's go into these prayers in some detail. What can we say about, what do they teach us about praying in general?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I think this chapter, as well as the previous chapter, provides excellent examples of multiple types of prayer in different circumstances. So the last chapter, we find the Brahmastra attacking Arjuna, and when Arjuna comes before Krishna, he makes a quick prayer. Krishna Krishna Mahabaho Bhaktanam Abhayankara Tvameko Dahyamananam Apavargosi Samsrite. Krishna, Krishna, O mighty armed Krishna, you alone can relieve your devotees from the burning fire of existence in this world. And it's interesting because in this chapter, in chapter 8, when Uttara comes, because of a very similar problem, the Brahmastra has now been directed towards her and to her womb, then she also says, Pahi Pahi Mahayogin. So she calls Krishna the great mystic, which is telling, is relevant, because that's exactly what Krishna needs to do. Whereas in Arjuna's case, it was more of an external threat. Here, the threat is, of course, external, but he needs to be a yogi. He needs to be a mystic. He needs to show special subtle power in order to protect not only Uttara, but also the child within, who is much more susceptible to suffering of any kind. Because we know that parents can survive and the children in the womb may not, in situations where there's great fear or terror or danger or imbalance of some kind in one circumstance. So she addresses Krishna as Mahayogin. But it's interesting, just like Arjun, she takes just a moment to explain Krishna's broader, or to offer a broader prayer to Krishna before focusing on the immediate problem. She says, she also, like Arjun says, you all have the capacity to relieve us from the cycle of samsara, right? From birth and death as a whole, not just the danger in the present moment. And I think this is something special about prayers in the Bhagavatam. We find that, well, for one, devotees always pray to Krishna from where they are at. So prayers are such a wonderful window into the relationship between the Lord and his devotees. And in fact, the Bhagavatam is so relishes that relationship so much that it takes great attention and care to tell us about these prayers. I remember as a child, I used to be very disappointed when the prayers used to arrive. We would read Bhagavatam as a family, and I was into the plot, as you might imagine children are, and Hiranyakashipu and Nrsingadev fighting each other and things happening, right? And it felt like the moment we moved one step forward in the plot, then there would be a pause, and someone would be offering prayers to the Lord. And the prayers would be exceedingly long, and then the plot would move ahead in 3 verses, and then we'd get another 25 verses of prayers. And it's only later that I came to really recognize and appreciate these prayers for what they are, which is they are windows into the personal relationship between Krishna and his devotees. None of these prayers are generic. There's no, there's some things, there's some themes that emerge repeatedly in prayers, yes, but every prayer begins from where the devotee stands. And in Uttara's case, it is immediate danger and her concern as an expectant mother. I mean, that kind of fear for the child, there's few things that match that kind of fear in a mother's heart and mind. So we can see the anxiety she's in when she's coming. And then Queen Kunti is offering her prayers and demonstrating her relationship with Krishna from a very different space, right? She's been through what Uttara is going through many times already. The situations where her children have been in immediate situations of danger. And she has done what Uttara has done. In fact, she reflects on this she mentions it. She says, in all these moments, I prayed to you and you were there. Her prayer now is different. She's not in Uttara's space anymore. She's looking back at her life and reflecting and saying, my Lord, the relationship you and I have now, I would not exchange that for anything in the world, right? All those difficulties, all those calamities have gotten us to this point where I feel so confident of your protection. And you can just hear the confidence, not the fear, but the confidence in her voice. Even as Krishna is leaving and she's sad and she's disappointed, she is not afraid that he is actually leaving. She is confident that no matter how far he may be, he's always right there. Because she's seen that again and again. She says, in the game of dice, in the forest with Durvasa Muni, in the house of fire, in poisoning of Bhima, Krishna's always been there, right? So you really see the relationship and the character of Arjuna, of Uttara, and of Kunti in relation to Krishna through their prayers. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about prayers in this chapter, but also in Bhagavatam as a whole.
Thank you. I think this is very useful and helpful for many of us. I don't think you're the only one who has struggled with the prayers in your childhood, or I remember doing that not in my childhood, but in my youth. Another thing which I think is very important with the prayers in the Bhagavatam is, of course, they teach us theology. They teach these different personalities. They teach us about Krishna through the prayers. The prayers are meant, they're prayers to Krishna, but they're also for us to hear their realizations about Krishna. Earlier today I was teaching a class on the religions of the ancient world, and we were speaking about Greek religion, and we were reading a prayer to Zeus. And I wanted the students to reflect on what we learn about Zeus in this prayer. And at first, or not really a prayer, more a hymn. And at first they didn't really have so much to say, but then when we kind of went into it and started looking at it in more detail, they realized there's a lot here to understand. And the same is, of course, true in the Bhagavatam. We learn so many about so many of the qualities of Krishna.